Man, Mizzou, Jesus Christ.
Dude.
You're giving Florida State a run for your money for worst top 10 team this season.
No, there's got to be somebody worse than Mizzou. But there's a couple of things. I didn't get to watch all of that game because, like I said, I was at Kalahari over the weekend, and wandering around the water park, I did sneak glances every now and then at TVs that were around. And I was like, man, A&M's handling Missouri early. And I'm like, wow, A&M's sticking it to Missouri. I'm like, wow, A&M play there. I think one, Missouri hadn't played anybody, so we really didn't know how good Missouri was or wasn't. Two, A&M, say what you want about the Aggies, Longhorn fans, they're battle tested. They played Arkansas. They played Notre Dame at home earlier in the year, so at least they played somebody with a pulse. And I think the third thing is, Mizzou, the last thing Brady Cook needed to do was mouth off about the atmosphere in College Station, because the last thing Aggies need is a reason to be loud and obnoxious. So, yeah, I had no sympathy for Drink and that Missouri team and the egg they laid on Saturday. And it's funny, a couple of weeks ago, fans talk about Elko was the wrong hire, and Colin span of 3 weeks from wanting to fire your coach to now being mad because you're not ranked higher in the FPI, which is pretty much meaningless. But I was it's a credit to Mike Elko and Colin Klein that they gave Connor Wigman started thinking about it. I was checking the score on my phone too. I was really trying to follow it on my phone, and I was like, man, okay, there's no turnovers in this game. Like, how is it so just lopsided? Well, A&M was dominating the rushing battle, which $10 on third down at that point. I'm like, oh, okay, that's exactly how you control a football game. So credit to the Aggies for getting a big win. Credit to Arkansas for getting a big win. Again, that's an Arkansas team that, hey, man, they've played. I'm channeling my inner Tom Herman here a little bit. Dude, it's really freaking hard to win week to week in the SEC, especially you go on the road and win. Missouri's lost to A&M, was on the road. So, and the other thing, Jordan, that the back half of the schedule for Texas looks not quite the cupcake or the gift from the SEC scheduling. All of those teams have a win now over an AP top 10 team.
You make a great point. And Longhorn Bear makes a great point. Jeff, do you think they'll give him his shoes back now?
Probably, yeah.
No, sorry. I had to. It was
and really took was offended by not so much challenging the criticism of Connor Wigman's play, but thank you, Jake. Thank you, Coach 420. Not challenging his play, because even Elko said during his reigns, like, look, you can criticize the stats all you want. That's fair game. But attacking the character, and let's be honest. Wild weekend in the SEC. The game I watched the most was Tennessee Arkansas, and just the fact that Nico did not have a good game. They didn't protect him. I don't know what Arkansas finished with, Jordan, in terms of sacks, but they only had 3 in the first half. They didn't protect him well. Arkansas won the line of scrimmage battle, even with Taylor Green going out. even if he's not a quarterback, he's too good of a football player to not help you win games somewhere. Running back, H-back, wide receiver, linebacker, safety, wherever you want to put him, he'll help you win football games. And he's doing that for Arkansas. So it's the Texas schedule looks a little bit tougher than maybe we thought, but this is Alabama beat Georgia. I don't think there is any dominant team in college football this year. There's not what the previous Georgia teams have been, or just go back down the road. Some of those Nick Saban Alabama teams, or any of those teams, some of those Urban Meyer Ohio State teams. There's not that one team that's going to set the pace for everybody else in college football this year. Right now it's Texas and Ohio State. Just Ohio State beat Iowa, but I mean, come on, 14 points was going to win that game.
So what do you think of the chances Texas drops number 2 again come this time next week? Let me phrase this better. Let's say Texas beats Oklahoma this weekend, right? We're not going to talk about how much points, but let's just say they win, right?
Yeah.
Because again, we're talking Eugene. Let's say they beat them, or let's say Ohio State wins. In both those situations, do you see Texas getting dropped to 2, even with the win over Oklahoma? Just because, between Oregon and Ohio State, whoever wins that game will arguably have, especially if it's Ohio State, considering it's in Eugene, but whoever wins that game could potentially become the number 1 team.
Because the coaches, poll voters, be they sports information directors, GAs, or on a rare occasion the head coach himself casts a ballot, they tend to be less reactionary, less knee-jerk than the AP poll voters. I do think, and I see Jake Bayless with a comment. By the way, Jake, CB, DJ, Jack, Ike, I saw you in here too. Coach 420, thank you everybody for hanging out in the chat. I think an Ohio State road win over Oregon will jump them ahead of Texas in the AP poll. So I think that even if it's by a last second field goal, I think that going to Oregon and winning that game will mean more to the AP poll voters than Texas beating, even though Texas beat the number 18 team in the country. Granted, it was a neutral site, but they didn't cover the spread, and it was a dogfight. I just think Texas will stay number 1 in the coaches poll with a win, but Ohio State with a road win over Oregon. Unless Texas is really impressive against Oklahoma, they'll jump Texas in the AP poll. But at the end of the day, at this point, Jordan, it's just survive in advance. That's all you're trying to do, because you control your destiny. Your destiny for the SEC championship game is in your hands. That's the big thing to come out of this weekend. I mean, if I'm thinking about it right, but brother, you want to go into that Saturday with A&M and Texas undefeated in the conference and playing that Saturday, the return of the rivalry at Kyle Field. A&M at that man, I can't even begin to tell you how massive that would be. But that's me putting the cart way in front of the horse. But
let's look at their schedule, right?
We're talking about the A&M schedule.
Yeah, they're on a bye this. Missouri, Mississippi State on the road. That's a win. They suck. If A&M loses to Mississippi State, there are bigger problems than football and College Station.
That is a Mississippi State team coming off of a bye, and it's a road game in the SEC. So,
if Jeff figures out a way to beat A&M with his own players and to out-scheme Mike Elko Colin Klein too. He is the head coach. Levy is. And man, who even is there? I can't. It's Santucci, I think, or Durkin. I'm blanking on who they rehired for or who they hired for DC. Like, that's actually incredibly embarrassing. One of the more embarrassing things you could find in college football. They're not going to lose that game. The next week after that, they have LSU at home. I'm not sold on LSU at all. I want Nussmeier to do well. He's a Texas kid. Actually, right down the road. The high school he went to is about 10, 15 minutes down the road for me, Flowermount Marcus. And he's got a young brother who's a 5-star quarterback. I'm not sold on Nussmeier in college quite just yet. I've seen some interesting mock drafts that have had him going first round, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, I mean, Jesus Christ. Like, these are mock drafts that are made in the season. It's not like these are from June. Are we watching the same guy? Because I don't know if we are. And I'm not sold on him. I think Caden Durham's a star. I thought Caden Durham was going to be a star going back to Duncanville. You can't run at 10-2 as a running back after rushing for 4,000 plus yards in 2 seasons at Duncanville. That's not how this works. You're going to be good at football in college, and that's what Durham is. I believe he has over 200 rushing yards already as a true freshman, and they didn't really start playing him until recently. So I think that'll be a damn good game. Unfortunately, A&M, or not A&M, the NCAA changed the overtime rules, so we can't ever see another 7 overtime game. It's also kind of funny how that's like A&M fan, like one of A&M fans' best memories. It took 7 overtimes to beat LSU. But anyways, they're the number 13 team in the nation currently. That'll be a good one. I don't know who to lean considering, like what DJ Dog said, the LSU defense varies from week to week. I really like Blake Baker. I think A&M kind of exposed Missouri and how good of a coach Blake Baker actually was, considering he's no longer there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I mean, it shows how big attrition can be. Everyone's just talking about how bad Mizzou was and how much they got out coached and just how talented. But, like, they lost 5 NFL draft picks on defense, right? That's hard to replace. That's hard for anyone to replace. And you can see the difference in level of quality of staff when moments like these happen. I think, obviously, you know, it's going to be different. Things aren't even nowadays. Texas has more money than Mizzou. I'm just going to say it how it is because it's true. But at the end of the day, if 5 starters leave on defense and you don't have a plan or some form of a plan, it seems like, to replace them or bounce back, how to figure that out, I don't know what to tell you because, I mean, it's not week 1 of the season, right? How many players did Texas lose on defense? I couldn't tell you, but they had 12 players drafted, second most in college football.
11,
they figured it out and managed an undefeated record, but
I had to go back and look at it because I couldn't remember if Ennis Rakestraw was drafted in the first round, but he was drafted in the late second. So
he's also a Duncanville product.
Yeah. So it was 5. I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 draft picks from Missouri last year. Like you said, Jordan, all 5 of those starters on defense that departed were drafted, including pretty much just, you know, you got to overhaul your whole secondary pretty much.
Yeah. And, you know, with A&M, you look at their schedule, they're going to beat Mississippi State. LSU, I look at that as a toss-up. They go on the road to South Carolina on November 2nd. You want to look at South Carolina's next few games? Alabama, at Oklahoma, A&M at home, at Vanderbilt, Mizzou at home, Wofford at home, Clemson on the road. So you're telling me, after having to go to Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa, where they will get their ass kicked considering Bama just got embarrassed by Vandy, South Carolina's going to get their ass kicked by Alabama. Then they're going to play OU, who could potentially have a red ass, just like Bama did the week before because they would have played Texas the week before. And then they're going to have A&M at home after a bye week following that OU and Bama game. I think this is setting up incredibly well for South Carolina to beat A&M on November 2nd. After that, A&M has a bye week after the South Carolina game.
Jordan, just if I'm playing defense against Jordan, I just bit on an outside zone, and he's running the end around, and he's high stepping into the end zone right now. That was Apollo's tester. Like you had me in the first half, you had me, but dude, you come back and are praising predicted Shane Beamer and company to get the upset. But hey,